It was, I would say it was different, but honestly, it was normal because we didn't know what different would be, what a real house would be. So to me and my sister, it was a normal experience until we probably got older and started to realize that the other people we hung out with and had over, didn't live in places like we did. Looking back on it, it certainly was an experience that was very special. Hi, my name is Rob Marvell. I'm the caretaker of the Breakers Mansion in Newport, Rhode Island, which is owned by the Preservation Society of Newport. I've been an employee there for 25 years and grew up in the Marble House, where my father, Robert Marvell Sr., was the caretaker for 45 years. The first event was my father becoming caretaker at Marble House. Then growing up there, watching what he did and how he took care of such a beautiful estate, and kind of got me interested in wanting to, follow after him. So I began working at the Preservation Society in 1994, working for my dad, cleaning toilets and dusting and locking up the Marble House, shutting lights off and things like that. I've worked shortly after that for the Special Events Department, which do all the functions at our properties. And I worked there for 3 or 4 years and got an opportunity to become a full-time employee with the Grounds Department. So now I've worked for the Housekeeping Properties Department, Special Events, and now into the Grounds Department, kind of learning all there is to know about different facets of the job. And I worked for the Grounds Department in just a laborer role for 2 years and was promoted to a supervisor, where I stayed for 15 years taking care of a historic greenhouse and manicuring some of our formal gardens at 12 different estates. And I did that for almost 16 years when the opportunity to apply to be the caretaker of the Breakers came up, which isn't an opportunity that comes up very often. So I applied for it, and based on the work I had shown the preservation over 20 years prior in different departments, and my passion for the mission of the society, they offered me the position here. My plan was to take over for my father at Marble House, and this I saw as an important step in doing that. I don't think that will happen now. I don't believe that a caretaker will be put back, at least a live-in caretaker will be put back at Marble House. But I did want to become a caretaker, yes. When you work in an old house, you never know what you will walk into on a daily basis, and it could be a variety of different things. But generally I show up on the property around 6 in the morning, and we'll do a security walkthrough around the outside and the inside of the house, just making sure nothing looks out of place. Gates are locked, and doors have been locked, and windows haven't been messed with. And then I'll walk through the inside of the building and just try to identify areas that might need attention from a cleaning standpoint, but also keeping an eye out for anything that might go wrong from a plumbing or electrical or sewerage point of view. There's a lot of things to pay attention to, because a small problem turns into a big problem really quick here. So identifying areas that need attention is a big part of my job. So I spend a good portion of my morning doing that. By 10 o'clock my staff is here, and I've assigned cleaning projects and maintenance projects to them, and we open currently we open at noon for visitors. So by noon, my staff is assigned to different areas of the house to make sure that our visitor experiences are the best they can be. Well, every room is a little bit different. It depends on the collection pieces that are in each room. So a room like this, we'll clean like the chandelier here, which would require dusting it with a paintbrush and a vacuum for all the metal surfaces, and then cleaning the crystals with like a deionized water. And something like that, a chandelier like that, might take us a week to do, whereas the individual armchairs and couches, we'll use a similar technique with a very soft bristled brush and an adjustable suction vacuum. And a single chair might take a couple of hours of gently brushing the dust off of the surfaces, the textiles and the wood framing. The rug, a rug that size would probably take about 8 hours to do. We would use a screen. We'd put a screen, like a window screen almost, down in a section and run a variable suction vacuum over the screened area. And that just protects the fibers of the rug from being sucked into the vacuum or damaged. So that a rug like that could take 8 hours. The floor, we wax and clean the floor maybe every 2 weeks. And that process would take 2 to 3 hours to do the floor in this room. But on a day-to-day basis, we'll come through with special dusters and just hit any flat surfaces, clean the plexiglass protecting our tables, and we may spend 15 minutes a day in a room like this just doing general cleaning. So the Breakers has 70 rooms inside of the main house here. It's 138,300 square feet of living area. And the room we're standing in now is the formal dining room. And the ceilings, it's 50 feet to the ceiling in this room. And if you look up around the perimeter of the room, you can see these life-like carvings. Those individual carvings are all life-size. They're all 6 feet tall if they were to stand up. They look tiny in this room. And the chandeliers, the 2 chandeliers in this room, each weigh about 1,000 pounds. And as opposed to the chandeliers we talked about in the music room, it takes 2 people approximately 4 to 5 weeks to clean one of these chandeliers. And we'll clean those usually every 2 years. My favorite room in this house is the library, which we're sitting in right now. And for a couple of reasons. One, this is a fireplace that I'm sitting in, which is 6 feet tall, and you don't see fireplaces like that very often. And this fireplace came out of a castle in France and was brought over here. It's 500 years old, and that's pretty cool. But also the detail in this room, from the ceilings and the walls, it feels comfortable in here. After we close, we evaluate again the condition of the house, and we make sure it's secure. At the end of the day, lights off, doors locked, and the alarms are on. But every day is different. When the bathrooms, we had to shut down on the 4th of July weekend with 4,000 people visiting us, dealing with the angry visitors that a situation like that can produce, and figuring out what to do in order to provide facilities for people. That can be a little bit stressful. But a situation that I know how to handle now, which is good, because as different situations come up, you learn from them and are prepared the next time something happens. Well, it's changed in that we have to pay a lot more attention to sanitization of touchable surfaces. Any surface that a visitor or a staff member might touch, we have to sanitize throughout the day, several times throughout the day. Whereas pre-COVID, we would wipe those surfaces down maybe twice a day. Now we're doing it 5 or 6 times a day. But also we lost 70% of our staff, close to 70% of our staff to layoffs, just so that the company could survive through this period. So the workload on every one of us has increased quite a bit. So part of my job now is to keep those few employees we have remaining motivated and engaged without them getting too frustrated with the amount of work they've really had to take on. And that's been the biggest challenge from my position. The biggest advice is never think you know everything about whatever you're doing. Because when you think that you know everything there is to know, and you stop learning, you've failed at your job. And that's what I would say. Always be open to learning new techniques, new ways of doing things, and different ways of viewing situations, because the people you work with are all different and individuals, and technology is constantly changing. And when people get stuck in their ways, they often get passed by for advancement opportunities or things like that. So I would always say, always be open to learning more.